The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
I must say it's an odd circumstance. One of the most beloved players in franchise history, and certainly the most beloved player in the last decade for this franchise, could be stirring things up a little bit as mandatory minicamp gets underway today. Now, I don't think it's a huge deal if Terry McLaurin doesn't show up. It's just that the image that he has earned and the person that he is doesn't usually fit this kind of profile. Again, it's negotiations. It happened 3 years ago. It worked out fine. They got a new deal. And I think whether they have a new deal in place by the time this mini camp wraps up in a couple of days or whether it doesn't happen until training camp, I think it's going to be fine. And even if for some reason they don't, although I would be stunned if that doesn't happen, I think Terry McLaurin is going to show up for the start of training camp. But, you know, usually it's a mini camp with a yawn, right? I mean, what happens here? Sometimes when there's like a new player last year. How does Jaden Daniels look? How does he look? Well, we know how he looks. He was great. He was great last year when it really counted. This year, it's where's Terry? And maybe he'll be there. I'm checking Twitter, checking the beat people who are responsible for finding out about these things. And once I get some kind of word, I'll pass it along. But whether he shows or whether he doesn't show, I don't think it's an enormous deal. But it's something to monitor. And I would think by the time we scoot out by 11 o'clock, we'll know something. I would think we'll know something. But even if we don't, it's okay, too. The most important player on this team by miles, by a multiple of like 1,000, is Jaden Daniels. And part of the success that Jaden Daniels had last year was due to the chemistry that he had with Terry McLaurin. So when people start talking about trades, forget it. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Terry McLaurin is going to have a contract extension. I would imagine it'll be a short one since he's turning 30 in September. He's probably looking for top 5 money, and reality is he's a top 15 receiver. So we're talking about the difference of a couple of $1 million per year. And, yeah, that's a huge deal to you and me. And in the grand scheme, it's probably a decent-sized deal for the salary cap. But they'll work it out. They will get this done. If it doesn't happen and for whatever reason he holds out, that'll be shocking. I think it'll be even more shocking if he's traded. I just don't see that happening. I think that Terry McLaurin is too important to that brotherhood that they've talked about, that they've built. He's a leader. He's a guy who's weathered the storms here for all those years, coming in 2019 when this team was an absolute mess and his coach, Jake Gruden, got fired 5 games into the season. The whole Ron Rivera era, which was more chaos, and then finally coming through into the light last year as they emerged from the darkness of Dan Snyder and made it to the NFC Championship game. All right, I make no apologies for not being a big hockey guy. I'm perfectly upfront about this. I watch the Capitals in the postseason, and that's about it. I pay attention to the happenings of the team on and off the ice, including the retirement of TJ Oshie yesterday, which we will get to. But Stanley Cup Finals took a very interesting turn last night. You had 2 very, very close games, as close as they could be in the first 2 in Edmonton. One decided in overtime, one decided in double overtime. It's a 1-1 series coming to Florida last night. And then all hell breaks loose. Florida wins the game 6-1. On top of that, hell breaking loose, with the Panthers up 5-1, all 10 players on the ice got into a big scrum after Oilers forward Trent Frederick went after Florida's Sam Bennett. Gloves went flying all over the place. Fists were exchanged. The other 8 players, after those 2 got into it, split into pairs, and they were fighting. The officials were able to finally get things under control. Frederick, Bennett, Darnell Nurse, and Jonah Gadatovich were all issued game misconducts and ejected from the game. What does it mean going forward. It's still only a 2-1 lead for the defending champions, but with a 6-1 victory, a decisive victory, and the frustration showing for Edmonton. What does it mean as we head for Game 4 tomorrow night? This was Steve Levy and Kevin Weeks last night on ESPN.
This is a rematch of the Stanley Cup final from 1 year ago. Florida Panthers went on to win the first 3 games of that series. Remember, Florida had a 3-1 lead in Game 1 of this series. It could be 3-0 again, but it's not. And then Connor McDavid, a year ago, after the Oilers were going sideways, went on an infamous rant that was overheard from the Edmonton dressing room in this building.
Right now. Right now. Right now. It's not ideal, but it's happened so many times. But that's not good enough. The finals. Dig the in right now. Whatever the you have. That is not good enough.
Weeksy, Connor McDavid and the Oilers are in the same dressing room, right in that same spot. Difference is this is after 3 games. That was after 2 a year ago. I don't know if McDavid rips the paint off the wall again or says something else or somebody else, but what does Edmonton do to get back into the series now?
Well, I got to think that Connor McDavid is going to speak in the dressing room, maybe him and Leon Draisaitl, and they realize the magnitude of what's at stake. This is their opportunity. Make no mistake, they don't have to play another game. They're Hall of Famers already, based on what they've done. But the elusive Stanley Cup, winning the Stanley Cup, it's the hardest trophy to win in pro sports, and we love all sports. We just saw Champions League the other day. We saw the Europa Cup with Cristiano Ronaldo in Portugal. This is the moment for those guys, and they can't let it slip away. They're down 1 game. They got absolutely blitzed and dominated in every facet of the game. I got to think that they're going to tear a strip off the guys in the dressing room.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can throw out games like this. Many people remember back in the mid-'80s, the Memorial Day massacre where the Boston Celtics destroyed the Lakers in the first game of the series, which was held on Memorial Day, and the Lakers came back to win the series. So sometimes you can throw out one of these games, but I think what we saw last night was real frustration from a team that barely won 1 of 2 back home in Edmonton, and now is facing the possibility of going down 3-1 when the series shifts back. This is Matthew Tkachuk of Florida on that chippiness, on the fighting that went on the ice with the score at 5-1, talking to Fox last night.
It is what it is. We talk about being composed, and if you got to take a punch in the face, if you got to take a slash in the face, a cross check, slash in the leg, whatever the case is, you got to do it. There's a bigger picture with the win here for us, and just wanted to protect ourselves and protect our teammates when needed. But at the end of the day, you got to be smart in a game like this, and I thought our team did that and really protected each other well.
Chucky, it's Biz here. I mean, we can go through every guy in this lineup tonight. Incredible performance, all hands on deck, but not a familiar name in every household in the United States. Gadjevich, he ends up sticking up for a teammate late in that game. Part of this unbelievable fourth line that provides you guys energy and obviously some security. What's it like playing with him? What's he like in the locker room, and how much does he mean to that lineup?
He means so much, like way more than, so much more than anybody would think or imagine. And I don't really know how that started. I think Benny or somebody was just eating cross checks in the back or slashes or something, and he comes in there, and the rest of the guys came in there to help. And he got what seemed like a 5-minute UFC fight with Nurse there, and just seemed to be having the best time doing it. Landed some good ones, and I don't know, it was just, that's part of his game. But I mean, I think that's his first fight in playoffs, and he's done so many incredible things for our team, along with Nosey and Greersy. They've been a great line for us, and they were leading out there tonight, and we're super lucky to have them. And I think it's pretty known, but when they came in against Toronto, that just ever since they came in, it's been a real identity line for us, and they've been really good.
That's Matthew Tkachuk of Florida, looking to raise the Stanley Cup for the second straight year. They're 2 wins away from doing that. Wayne Gretzky, part of the TV coverage on Fox, won his Stanley Cups with the Edmonton Oilers, has some affinity for them, though trying to be neutral on TV. But looking at what Edmonton has to do with this series heading to Game 4, I said tomorrow night, it's actually Thursday night. Thursday night, they play Game 4, and here's the outlook as he sees it for his former team.
They got to initiate, not retaliate. They got a team that's good enough to regroup here. They still need. They wanted to come down here and split, right? It's easy to say we're going to go down there and win both games. You're playing against the Stanley Cup champions. Go down there, win one game, go home 2-2, and get back to your home court advantage. So they'll regroup. They've done it in the past. They did it last year. I know that this was probably one of their tougher playoff games they've had all year, but they're playing a great team, and a great team that's playing a style and a system. And the Oilers can't play to their style and system. They got to play Edmonton Oilers hockey, and that's fast, crisp, whistle to whistle, and play hard and get a big save.
We shall see. Remember what happened last year? 3-0. It became 3-3, but ultimately Florida won the series. So Thursday night looms huge for the Edmonton Oilers, but even if they lose, they still won't be in as bad a spot as they were last year, down 3-0. They would only be down 3-1 heading home, and then it goes, 1-1-1 the rest of the way. So we'll see. But it did get chippy last night. You don't usually see fighting in the postseason for obvious reasons, and we saw all hell break loose last night. But the game was over at that point. It was a 5-1 game, and Edmonton was not going to come back. Something we're going to talk about later in the show, which really fascinated me with what's going on with the parade this weekend here in D.C., and it is, of course, the 150th anniversary of the Army, and it was 50 years ago today that something happened in celebration of that at Shea Stadium, where there was a 21-gun salute, which knocked down part of the outfield fence. Yeah, blanks were in the cannons, but it was still enough force to knock down part of the outfield fence. Fortunately, they got things together. The other part of this story, and we'll delve more into it coming up, is that the Yankees were playing at Shea Stadium 50 years ago. Yankee Stadium was being refurbished. They were out of there for 2 years. They shared Shea with the Mets in 1974 and 1975. They didn't draw well. The Yankee fan base is more like, the Bronx and Westchester, whereas the Met fan base is more Queens and Long Island. And so the Yankee fans going to watch a team that wasn't any good, that was a big schlep for them. They weren't going to necessarily go out to Queens to watch them play, and they were sharing the stadium that year, and that crazy stuff happened. Also, later in the show, I'll take a look at and this is really old school. It's so old school. It's not even school anymore. It's like ancient history, but the Washington Post, which still puts out a print edition, and by the way, I've canceled the print edition. I just have online access. But for whatever reason, for like the last 6 weeks, they've been delivering the paper. So I don't know how much longer that's going to continue, but I get the actual paper. The Sly Stone obit is on page 1 today, A1. A1 obits are usually reserved for for certainly like presidents and many, famous people have made the front page obit. But Sly Stone, whose popularity peaked maybe 50 years ago, right? Early 70s. First big breakout, I guess, was his performance at Woodstock. And then, disappeared because of drugs and other issues and really hasn't been heard from in like 40 years. He made A1 of the paper. Again, I don't even know how much of a big deal this is anymore. Maybe, today's Tuesday, so maybe Tony will talk about this tomorrow. This is something that's of import to him, but it just is baffling to me that was an A1 obit, and we'll go through that coming up. Also, Paul Feinbaum in the next hour is going to talk about what the NIL means and how things are going to change with it's an approval of a settlement that will pay out $2.8 billion to athletes, current and past, and is supposed to set up something of a salary cap where each school is going to have $20.5 million to spend on its athletes, but it's just begging to be abused, and more than likely it's going to be a lot more chaos than anybody thinks. Coming up, we'll get to TJ Oshie who officially announced his retirement yesterday and did it in a spot that was absolutely perfect. It was the fountains of Georgetown. I like to ride my bike down there, as a matter of fact, and those are the fountains where the team splashed around, after winning the Stanley Cup. It was one of the great championship celebrations we've had, not just in this town, but any town. He did it on the same spot. It took him 20 minutes to do it. It was a little bit cumbersome, but I pulled out the highlights of the retirement speech, and we'll get to those next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So it was, it's a long time. It's 7 years since the Capitals won the Stanley Cup. And it'd been a long time coming. The franchise started in 1974. They were horrendous the first year. They won one road game against a team that no longer exists, or I guess is now maybe the New Jersey Devils, if I'm not mistaken. It was the California Golden Seals, played in Oakland, 3,000 people there. And it was the only road game that they won that year. And the players took a trash can and wrote Stanley Cup on it and paraded it around the ice. That was then, and it took them a long time to get off the ground. There was even remember the Save the Caps campaign in 1982. Nobody was going to the games. Abe Pollin was threatening to move the team. He wanted a better tax deal. They stayed, and the big thing that happened really that summer was that David Poile made the trade for Rod Langway. Rod Langway became the face of the franchise, the face without a helmet, one of the last players to play in the league without a helmet. He was grandfathered in and was one of the best defensemen in the league. And once they got him, they started to become a regular playoff team, and things really picked up from there. I was interested to hear what Chris Patrick said yesterday about TJ Oshie, that Oshie was the most important trade that the Capitals made since the Langway deal. Maybe. I don't know enough about hockey to tell you, but the impact of the Langway deal was so huge. I mean, we may not have a hockey team here were it not for the Langway deal. I don't think that's overstating it. TJ Oshie turned out to be a big missing piece towards them winning a Stanley Cup, which they did 7 years ago. And they had a parade. Remember, I was at the parade which wound up downtown on the mall, and there were speeches that were boozy speeches. Oshie with a Budweiser in his hand. He was, and this is, the future looks so bright, you had to wear shades. He's now 38 years old, so he would have been in his absolute prime at 31, playing for a team that had Alex Ovechkin in his prime. He was the Stanley Cup Finals MVP. And, okay, they finally got over the hump. They won the Stanley Cup. They had gotten to the finals for the first time since 1998. It was a long time coming. And now Oshie, emboldened maybe by the beer, but certainly by winning the Stanley Cup, said this to the crowd.
We love you, and there's been a lot of chants. There's been let's go Caps. There's been we want the cup. We've heard in the streets we got the cup. We got a new one for you tonight. Today, back to back, 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 back to back.
Well, sadly for TJ Oshie and his Capitals teammates, it didn't work out that way. Barry Trotz, I did have a clause in his contract that he would get a $300,000 raise if he won the Stanley Cup, but that was very much outdated at the time with the way coaching salaries had gone. Ted Leonsis didn't want to pay him, so they promoted Todd Reardon, who actually had almost gotten the job during the season. Capitals were in a terrible slump, and had they not won a road game at Minnesota, a coaching change may have been possible at that time, and Reardon wouldn't have gotten the job. Well, Reardon, as an assistant coach, as a head coach, turned out to be a very good assistant coach and not a good head coach. He lasted 2 years. They didn't get out of the first round of the playoffs. They moved on, and now you have the coach of the year with the Capitals, and maybe things are going in the right direction. But the direction that TJ Oshie is going is to retirement. And this is not the way I would have choreographed a retirement announcement. It was a great spot, perfect spot, right down there in Georgetown at the fountains where they splashed around with the cup. And it was exactly 7 years to the day since they had been there celebrating. So it was a great spot to have it. But in preparing his retirement speech, he wrote out a whole bunch of pages that actually got blown away by the wind for a minute or two. They had to gather the papers to get it back on track. And it went almost 20 minutes, which is, way too long for a retirement speech. But I pulled out the highlights of that, and this was about coming to Washington after playing the first 7 years of his career with the St. Louis Blues.
On July 2nd, 2015, I got a call from the St. Louis Blues GM, Doug Armstrong, telling me I've been traded to the Washington Capitals. It's great now. At the time, there was a feeling like I let down a city and an organization, being on so many good teams and never finding a way to win the Stanley Cup. I was nervous, scared. How could I leave a team of trainers and players and fans who I love so much? And that weight, I'd say that weight was with me probably for the rest of the summer. Most of that weight was lifted a couple minutes after my call with Doug Armstrong, when I got a call from Capitals GM Brian McClellan. Mac, you're a man of few words, but in just minutes, you made me feel how excited the Capitals were to have me. Thanks for your belief in me. It changed my life.
And yes, for 2 years, he was a very good player. And then he hit free agency in the year going into the season that the Caps won the Stanley Cup.
After my first 2 seasons here, I was finally heading to free agency for the first time in my career. Free agency as a player seems nice, right? You see everyone get the big raises sometimes. I don't know, maybe get overpaid a little bit. Enticing, but I wanted to stay. I was going in, thank you. I was going in for our exit meeting after losing to
Don't say it.
the black and gold team up north.
Don't say it.
And typically you have an exit meeting with the coach, then with the GM, and you talk about your season, the team season. Clearly, if you didn't win, you got to talk about ways to improve and things that could get better. I'd done 8 of them already in my career, and no doubt this one would have been probably like the rest of them. But I wanted to do something a little different and do a small gesture to show how much I wanted to remain a Washington Capital. I got a paper towel from the bathroom and a Sharpie, and on it I wrote something along the lines of, I, TJ Oshie, hereby agree to sign an extension with the Washington Capitals for blank years at blank dollars. I then signed the paper and underlined a spot for Mac to put his signature in. I guess my agent might have got involved because those blanks were filled in with maybe a little bit more than I deserved, but the gesture was pure. I wanted to remain a Washington Capital. I wanted to stay here. Thank you. We're getting there. I wanted to stay here for a lot of reasons, but whew, this is where it gets tough. Mostly because of my teammates.
Let's go.
Quick drink.
It's a very refreshing lemonade.
Yeah. Ginger beer. Man, what an amazing ride we had. From President's Trophies, heartbreak losses, and a Stanley Cup, we've been through it all. I've been lucky in my life to be a part of amazing locker rooms, but the bond we have here in DC is special. It was an absolute privilege to go to war with you on the ice. when you read it to yourself silently, you don't get this emotional. All right. 30 years from now, looking back on my career and telling my grandkids about what it was like playing in the NHL, I'll tell them that my favorite memories was my time with you. Jeez. I know, I'm not... All right, I'm trying here. In the locker room, dinners on the road, cards on the plane. Jeez. And Mario Kart in the playoffs. Those are the times I cherish most. I got the tattoo right here to prove it.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to get another tattoo to mark his time in the NHL. We got some breaking news, by the way, on Terry McLaurin. Not surprising, though, a no-show as a mandatory minicamp is getting underway. I'll get to more on that after I finish up here with Oshie. This was the last part that I pulled, and he did not use the word retirement until he finally finished up after nearly 20 minutes. But there was a section, of course, to thank those who have watched him play here for the last 9 seasons.
Caps fans.
Hey.
How can I ever thank you enough for your support of me and my family, like my teammates, either at Cap One or through social? You guys have been there every step of the way. I want you to know your support is not taken for granted. I hope I've made you and the city proud by the way I've played the game. In 2018, we celebrated in the streets together because we won the Cup together. We felt your energy and fed off of it. You can't talk about Capitals hockey without mentioning our amazing fan base. You're a massive piece of my career, and it was an absolute honor to play for you.
That's TJ Oshie, 1,010 regular season games, 567 with the Capitals, 302 goals, 695 points, Stanley Cup title, and I guess for a national audience, he first came to prominence in 2014 when he had 4 shootout goals in those Sochi Olympics and became something of an American legend. So at 38, he's calling it a career. You leave him with a Stanley Cup. Not everybody gets to do that. Career that may put him in the Hall of Fame. Certainly, I would think the number 77 is going to be retired by the Capitals probably next season. I would think so. And I don't know what the future is going to hold for him. I've seen him on TV briefly working in the studio for ESPN. He's stiff. He needs a little work. And probably should get some work with Monumental before he goes national. I know he's a name and he's just leaving the game, and because the Capitals were in the Cup or in the playoffs, he was somebody they wanted to have in the studio, but he's going to need some brushing up. All right, Terry McLaurin, a no-show at mandatory minicamp, and this happened 3 years ago when he was negotiating the contract which he now has, which has 1 year to go. He's going into the 7th year of his career. He's coming off his best season. And I think a season that is really the first one of the 6 that he's played here in Washington that he can truly be judged on, because a dozen different quarterbacks, none of them really, starting caliber. Taylor Heineke, he played most of his games of his 6 years or 5 years, first 5 years of his career with Taylor Heineke. Is that what you want to be judged on? And the various array of washed up guys or retreads or backups that have been thrown in there, or, his old college teammate, Dwayne Haskins, who tragically really never got off the ground before he was killed in a car accident. All those things, look at, and I'm sure this is all part of the argument that his agent is using right now, is like, you really can't judge the whole body of work for Terry McLaurin in the 6 years here, because the first 5 were absolute chaos. It was a poorly run organization. Nobody wanted to come here. The players that they were bringing in were washed up, whether it was, Fitzgerald, who played 16 snaps and ended his career, and he was in the league like 15 years, never played in a playoff game. As I mentioned, Haskins. I mean, I could go through the list, but it's not impressive It's really a messy list, and with everything that happened with injuries and guys who just stunk, it's not fair. So last year he sets a franchise record, catching 13 touchdown passes, over 1,000 yards receiving, and he makes the Pro Bowl. And I think that's the argument of the agent. That's where he is now. And players play longer. He has had 3 concussions that we know about. He only missed 1 game because of concussion here. I think he's missed another couple of games because of hamstring injuries. But he's very durable and incredibly admired, I guess, by his teammates. He's a team leader. He's great with the media. There are a lot of, intangibles, or as our friend Larry Michael used to say, skin tangibles about him. So the negotiation is going to be interesting. What's happening, I'm sure, with the team is they're saying, well, you're looking to get him paid like a top 5 receiver, and he's more like a top 15 receiver. And we love him. He's got great chemistry with Jaden Daniels, and we'd like to sign him, but we're trying to win a championship here. And we can only tie up X amount of dollars in our salary cap before we get to the point where we can't justify that. Now, they have pushed this, and there's sincerity about it, but push this brotherhood thing. This is what you always hear Dan Quinn talking about, the chemistry that they have, the leadership, the ownership, the whole thing. And Terry McLaurin is one of the key guys with that. And I don't think they want to upset that. The other thing that you're saying to your other players is, yeah, we'll pay it to a certain degree. But those of you who have been really good soldiers here, we may not necessarily take care of you. I mean, this goes into a locker room. This will happen. If Terry McLaurin does not get a contract that he agrees to, if the players on the team feel like he's mistreated, that creates real problems in the locker room. And I think they want to avoid that. I think Adam Peters is smart enough to do that. I think that the way this organization is run, I don't think that's something they want to do. And look, the honeymoon period that they're in, it's still there, and the carryover will be there for a while, having made it to the NFC Championship game. But, the honeymoon starts to fade a little bit. And this leads to whatever comes next. Maybe there's another guy in this situation. Maybe there's an unhappy, person, which is inevitable in any organization. And this is not something I think they want to do at this point. Maybe 5 years down the road, you could handle something like this, and you might even be able to trade a guy like Terry McLaurin. But I don't think that's going to happen. And when you trade somebody of that level, you never get equal value. You just don't. And if you're going to trade him, you're going to trade him probably for another receiver who's going to be in the same boat, who's going to be looking for big money. And this is the last swing that McLaurin and his agent are going to have on a big contract. The next one he signs, if it's here, is going to be probably for significantly less money, unless, over the next 3 years he morphs into Jerry Rice. But that's not going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. So I would imagine that they're going to work this out. I would imagine that they'll have this done in time for the start of training camp late next month, but it's now widely reported that Terry McLaurin is not showing up for the mandatory minicamp. And the fact that he missed the last 2 weeks of organized team activities, which are voluntary, also tells you something and gives credence to these reports that he's frustrated at the rate of progress on his new contract. So, without Terry McLaurin, minicamp rolls on. That's the big story, and McLaurin is a no-show. Stay with us. We'll get to more on the NBA Finals. Tony and Mike weighing in on PTI last night, and what does this mean with the settlement with the NCAA? What's it going to mean long-term for college sports? We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. Okay, we can exhale. Terry McLaurin's a no-show. Well, maybe that makes you angry. Maybe that makes you nervous. But minicamp has begun. Mandatory minicamp at Ashburn, and McLaurin's not there. This happened 3 years ago. They worked out a contract. Everything is fine. I think everything will be fine this year. But without much else going on in the NFL, this will, I'm sure, give everybody spielkes. There will be nonstop chatter on sports radio. Oh, my God, he's not there. Should they trade him? Not going to trade him. Relax. He's going to be there when training camp starts, I believe. Could be wrong, but That's the way I feel about it. So I would say that have a good Tuesday. It should not ruin your day that Terry McLaurin did not show up at minicamp. It is mandatory, so he will be fined for that. But they're trying to work out a deal. He's not Justin Jefferson, who I guess is the high water mark now at $35 million a year, but he's no further down than I think 15 spots below him, and you can calculate what that is. So the fact that he's turning 30 years old does not work in his favor. But I also believe that chemistry is a big deal, and I think what he has developed with the most important player in the franchise, and Jaden Daniels, is important, and they're not going to want to upset that in any way. And look, McLaurin and his agent know that, so they're using that as leverage. When you're negotiating, you use everything you possibly can until you sign the deal. And then once the deal is signed, you go out there and prove that you're worth it. And I'm sure they will have exit ramps off of this. I believe that it will not be a long deal. I would expect it to be about 3 years or maybe longer with the ability for the team to get out of it. But the guaranteed money is what you always look at here. And I'm not anybody who can comment with any kind of knowledge as to exactly how the numbers are going to work. But if you're looking at the top spot at $35 million, just kind of work your way down a little bit from that, and they'll get something worked out. I think it's going to be okay. NBA Finals. We've got another night to wait for that. They are playing tomorrow night, and this is, you say pivotal game. I guess so. Indiana was maybe lucky to win game one. They turned the ball over 25 times. I mean, this stat still staggers me. 25 times, and Oklahoma City only turned it into 11 points, which allowed Therese Halliburton to hit the game-winning jumper. But then in game two, Oklahoma City was dominant, and the question is that what we're going to see the rest of the way in what could be, 5 more games or as few as 3 more games? But has now Oklahoma City established the upper hand, and they're going to take things from there. This was Tony and Mike yesterday on PTI, where the series stands now, even at a game apiece, heading to Indiana tomorrow night.
Wilbon, do you see this as just one win for Oklahoma City, or do you feel like the Thunder found something?
Tony, I feel like they found themselves and maybe a championship kick to some degree, maybe. I don't want to get crazy because I'm not one of those people who's counting out Indiana. Certainly not yet. They get to go home to a rabid crowd that I think the two best crowds in building right now in the NBA are in Oklahoma City and Indiana. You take your pick of which one. And they will be buoyed by that. I think the Pacers will be. They respond to it. Halliburton, when he comes off what is seen as a bad game or an inactive game to me, a passive game to me, tends to respond positively to that, and Rick Carlisle to getting his team to play better in that next game coming off a loss. Both these teams do that. So I think that OKC, though, they found themselves. They played up to the form that you and I have been expecting, and most people have been expecting coming off these series wins in the second round against Denver in the conference finals. They did all that. But now I think game 3 is a real game where you go, all right, let's see if somebody can get an advantage here. So I'm looking forward to that. But I do think Oklahoma City found something. Can they maintain it in Indianapolis in a couple of days?
This is pretty simple to me. Had Indiana won game 2 the way they won game 1, this series would be over, just like the Cleveland series was over with Indiana winning 4-1. So I expected, like you expected, Oklahoma City to go out, build a real big lead, and see if they could hang on. I was watching the Tony Awards, as I told you. I love the Tony Awards, and watching the game, and during commercials, flipping back and forth. And at one point, the score was Oklahoma City, something like 50-23. That's what it seemed like to me. And I said, okay, this one is done, because they're not going to give up this lead, because if they do, they're going to lose the series. They played as well as they could play. They should have played this way in game 1. Game 1, like Holmgren gave them nothing. And I know you love J-Dub. He gave them pretty much nothing. Shot 6 of 19, 1 of 4 from 3. They were significantly better in this game, which is exactly what Oklahoma City needed. I mean, Indiana, and I agree with this, I mean, I can see, and I know you can see it's possible, Oklahoma City winning 4 in a row. We've seen that before in NBA Finals. So it's really important to see if Indiana can hold on to serve here. I'm not exactly sure that they can. I think that Halliburton's, you can't just take 13 shots, Mike. They win every time he scores more than 20.
Well, he
was under 20 last night. He's their key. He's their guy.
No doubt, Tone. And by the way, remember, there's no 2-3-2 format. This is 2-2-1-1-1. So, you gotta, the pressure is on the Pacers to come back and win Game 3.
And that'll be tomorrow night. Now, with Halliburton, I mean, I hesitate to do this because, old man, here he goes again. But it was 50 years ago. We're celebrating. We're at the 50th anniversary of the Washington Bullets as favorites going into the finals against the Golden State Warriors and losing 4 straight. Many consider it to be one of the great upsets in NBA history. I know Rick Barry does, but Golden State had Rick Barry, and Rick Barry was Rick Barry in these finals. They were a deeper team. That made a big difference, but they won the series because of Rick Barry. Indiana, if they're going to win, if they're going to pull off the upset, because they were one of the biggest underdogs ever going into these finals, Halliburton's got to be what Rick Barry was 50 years ago to the Golden State Warriors. He's got to be that good. And Tony's 100% right. You can't score, 13 points. You take 13 shots or whatever it was, 18 points. You got to score. You got to score. You got to put this team on your back. And he hasn't done that. And he's had some big games in the playoffs, and to the credit of the Pacers and Rick Carlisle, the coach, they've gotten this far, but he's not been all that consistent in the playoffs. He has some great games, great performances, clutch performances, pulling games out of the fire. But if they're going to come back and win Game 3 at home, they're going to need him to be great. And he was not great the other night. He was not dominant. One of the stats I look at is he had only 1 foul. He did not get to the free throw line. You got to be more aggressive than that. And we'll see what happens with him tomorrow night. Meantime, more analysis from the Oklahoma City side. Michael Cage, who I'd forgotten about. Michael Cage, if you remember, when he played in the 1980s, had one of the great Jerry curls in sports. There are a few guys who had him. He had one of the best. Sadly, Father Time has taken care of that, and Michael Cage now shaves his head, presumably because there's not that much left up there. But I'd never heard him before, but he was actually excellent yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. He played the bulk of his career. I would say it was like 15 years in the league, and I think he played 6 or 7 of them with the Seattle Supersonics, who are now, of course, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And he is their radio analyst and talked to Dan about what he saw from Game 2 and whether or not these will be the Thunder for the rest of this series.
I think what you saw was a total team effort that got this team 68 wins last season because, as much as there's a lead dog in SGA, man, that dude is special, man. I've been here. This is my 11th year as a broadcaster for the Thunder. And when I got here, we had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, that whole group. And that era was kind of, at its last year or two run. And then we had to retool this team and get the Chris Paul. And then, there was the in-between of Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, along with Russell Westbrook. And then came the SGA story. And along with him came, a lot of hope, a lot of promise, a lot of progress, a lot of painstakingly growth. But what you saw last night, here's the answer, the bread and butter of your question. This is this team's identity. What you saw from Aaron Wiggins coming off the bench, getting 18 points, what you saw from Alex Caruso, getting 20 points. I mean, that's the identity of this team. Yeah, you can pick on SGA and say, look, we're going to try to stop him or we're going to let him score. If you let him score, he'll score 70. He'll kill you. I'm just telling you that now. So you have to respect, that, hey, he's the NBA's leading scorer, NBA's MVP, and he's not afraid of the moment, but there's a lot of depth to this team. And maybe you didn't see, maybe you saw a peekaboo of that on a couple of nights earlier in Game 1, where the Thunder led the whole way and then lost the game at the end on the Halliburton shot. But, the depth of this team, Isaiah Hardenstein, Chet Holmgren, Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, I've already mentioned AC and Aaron Wiggins. It just goes on and on, man. This is what this team is about, and that's what you're probably going to expect for the rest of the series.
Who does SGA remind you of on the offensive end?
And I say this with respect, Dan. He reminds me of a Jordan-like player. He's not afraid of contact. He's not afraid to get in the mid-range. He's got the three-point shot, in his pocket, but he pulls it out timely when he wants to. You know how it is in today's modern NBA. It's offenses are based around either the deep three-point shot or the deep paint finish. He's brought back the mid-range. When you talk about guys that like made a living in the mid-range, like the DeMar DeRozan's type players, SGA has really made teams start going, wait a minute now. Maybe we shouldn't be focusing so much on three-point shooters. Yeah, that's important. That's an important part of the game. Analytically, I believe that. But that mid-range where he dominates, where he is just fun to watch, that's where he reminds me of Jordan.
Yeah, he's Jordan under the rim. Because Mike played at a different level, literally and figuratively. But SGA can get his shot. Like you watch and you go, how does he do it? There's certain guys that you go, okay, I get, that they're great scorers or they get their shot. There's other guys where you go, I don't get it. But he keeps doing it every single night. And, when you look at consistency at leading the league in scoring, does he want to lead the league in scoring?
I don't think so. I think what I've seen in Shea since he got here after we traded for him, after one season in Los Angeles with the Clippers, I saw a scrawny kid who was just hungry, wanted to win. And when I've talked to him, when I've seen him, he's always got that kind of approach to the game. He's a magnet for friendships. I heard a story, and I knew about it, but I'm glad it got out about him becoming friends, really close friends with Lou Dort. Lou's first year with the team as well. Lou didn't have a place to stay yet. And Shea had just gotten here his first season. He said, hey, why don't you stay with me? I'm not married. I don't have any kids. He's married. He has, beautiful family now, Shea does. And they were roommates for a season. And then he turned around, and when we drafted J-Dub, who's going to be a rising star, tremendous player so far in this league, he said, look, because you're my rookie, I want you to pick me up and take me to the airport every road trip. See, that kind of camaraderie. That's pretty cool, man.
That's Michael Cage. Yeah, you remember him, if you're older, you remember him from the Jerry Curl days in the NBA, mostly with the Seattle Supersonics, now radio analyst with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And he's very good. I'd never heard him before. Not a hot take guy, obviously, but quite good. There's more other good trivia about him besides the Jerry Curl, is he was a college teammate at San Diego State with Tony Gwynn. That Tony Gwynn, one of the greatest hitters in Major League history. Tony Gwynn played basketball, was pretty damn good, and Dan Patrick asked Cage if he thought that Tony Gwynn could have played in the NBA.
Yes, I do. And he was a terrific point guard, great leader on the floor, could shoot the mid-range. Now, you got to remember, when I was in college, there was no three-point line. So that three-point line wasn't so much of a factor. But I watched him shoot in practice. He had range. And, man, he never told me. I got to tell you this, Dan. He never told me that he was that good of a baseball player until spring of his senior year, which was spring of my freshman year. He said, hey, why don't you come watch me play? Yeah, and that was it, man. I became a fan.
Yeah, he obviously picked the right sport. His body type changed. If you saw Tony Gwynn late in his career, you would never have imagined that he was actually a point guard. But if he'd have played basketball, he obviously would have stayed in a different kind of shape. But you think of guys who have played multiple sports. Danny Ainge is one of a handful of guys. There are a few. Dave DeBusschere did this. He was playing for, at one point, the Detroit Pistons and pitching for the Chicago White Sox. There was a guy back in like the 50s with the Boston Celtics, might have been Frank Ramsey. And there was Danny Ainge. And Danny Ainge had played at BYU. He was a great player at BYU. Most famous play was when he went the length of the floor to beat Notre Dame in the NCAA tournament. and after leaving BYU, went to play baseball for the Toronto Blue Jays. Baseball's hard, and this happens a lot. You know, guys try baseball. Jay Schrader, quarterback for the Redskins, had tried baseball after leaving UCLA, and he realized when he was playing in the minor leagues, facing Dwight Gooden at Twilight, that he wasn't going to be able to hit the slider. So he went and played football, had a good career, had a really good 1 year anyway here in 1986 with the Redskins. Guys have done that. But, you think of Tony Gwynn, and if he had tried the NBA, maybe he tries that first. I don't know. But he left San Diego State, stayed in San Diego his whole life. I think he was from San Diego, played there, and then played his entire career with the San Diego Padres and later became the baseball coach at San Diego State. Sadly died of cancer. He used a lot of dip, and he developed lip cancer, which spread to the rest of his body, and I think he died in his 50s. But, it's fascinating to think about guys like that. Tim Legler, a good NBA player, good shooter, played a while, and now is a great analyst on ESPN. I think he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Dan Marino was also drafted to play baseball. Tom Brady, drafted by the Montreal Expos. If you're an athlete, you're an athlete. And these elite athletes sometimes wind up in one sport most of the time. And then occasionally you get a Bo Jackson, who is probably Hall of Fame worthy in either sport. If Bo Jackson hadn't gotten hurt, he would have made the Hall of Fame in one of them, and maybe by some miracle, I don't know if he could have kept this up, but would it have been possible if the hip injury didn't happen, and if Bo Jackson continued to play baseball in the spring and summer and football in the fall, that he could have gone to the Hall of Fame in both sports? He has said in recent years that it was a mistake to play football. He should have stayed with baseball and probably would have been a Hall of Famer. If he devoted all his time to baseball with his power, I mean, we're talking about home runs that could put him in the Aaron Judge kind of category. That's how powerful he was. And you think about Tony Gwynn, maybe he wouldn't have been a great NBA player. He was a great baseball player. But Deion, another one. Deion, probably not a great baseball player, a great football player. And Michael Cage got to see that at the beginning. And the fact that he didn't even know he played baseball tells you the kind of modesty that Tony Gwynn had. That, oh, yeah, I play a little baseball. Oh, really? Yeah, how about that? Yeah, I'm maybe like the best hitter who ever lived. Coming up, it was 50 years ago today that somebody came up with a good idea to salute the Army's 100th birthday, but it didn't work out so well. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Oh, people love Tuesdays around here because on Tuesdays, Celebrity Deli shows up with real, authentic Jewish-style deli, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's not like, the packaged stuff that you get in the supermarket. I mean, this is the real McCoy with the pastrami and brisket and, potato latkes. These are the best potato latkes around, without question. Celebrity Deli, look, they've been around for 50 years. You don't stick around for 50 years unless you got great food, and they have great food. They're right there in Falls Church, right off of Route 50, where they've always been, and they always deliver. And I can give you the best endorsement I can possibly give you. It's from my soon-to-be 3-year-old granddaughter who loves matzo ball soup. She just absolutely loves it. It's her favorite. If you go out for breakfast, she orders matzo ball soup. And what's her review of Celebrity Deli matzo ball soup?
It's the best soup ever.
I mean, you can't beat that for an endorsement, right? I mean, it's top-notch.
It's the best soup ever.
So if you want to enjoy the great matzo ball soup or any of the other deli favorites at Celebrity Deli, you can go there, of course, right off of Route 50 in Falls Church, or you can order online at celebritydeli.com. They spell deli with a Y, D-E-L-L-Y. That's celebritydeli.com. Order what you want, either for yourself or you and someone else, or better yet, if you're catering a big event like a birthday party, a bar mitzvah, maybe even a wedding, make sure that Celebrity Deli brings you the real authentic food. That's Celebrity Deli, and you can order online at celebritydeli.com. That's celebritydeli.com. Just make sure that you spell deli with a Y. So this is sort of timely with the parade happening here this weekend, and that's actually the 250th birthday for the U.S. Army. So 50 years ago, obviously, would have been the 200th. So how did the New York Yankees decide to celebrate the 200th birthday of the Army? Well, this is really good trivia because in 1975, the New York Yankees were playing at Shea Stadium. They were redoing the old Yankee Stadium, and that has since been torn down, but it reopened for the 1976 season. But in 74 and 75, the Yankees played their home games at Shea Stadium in Queens. And on June 10th of 75, they staged a Salute to the Army Day, which featured a 21-gun salute before the first pitch. Not real guns, not real cannonballs in the cannons, but the cannons were placed in the outfield just 3 feet from the fence. They were blanks, but the force of that set the fence on fire and knocked over a couple of panels of it. The Yankees promotion director, Barry Landers, stood helplessly at attention in good Army style as all this was happening. The fire occurred. It was extinguished, and things got settled down, and the game was actually played. Now, the Mets, as landlords, were not too happy about this, but I guess they weren't going to kick them out. This was the last of 2 seasons that they played there. They played there 74, 75, so the season was almost half over in 75. They weren't going to kick them out. But the follow-up the next day was fun. Walter Cronkite, who was then the anchor, America's anchorman, always ended the newscast with what they call a kicker. And the kicker for Walter Cronkite, a day later, 50 years ago tomorrow, from what happened 50 years ago today at Shea, sounded like this.
There was something of a doubleheader at New York City's Shea Stadium last night. Before the Yankees and the California Angels took the field, an artillery detachment from Brooklyn's Fort Hamilton observed the U.S. Army's 200th anniversary with a 21-gun salute. The cannons were loaded with blanks, of course, but close enough to the outfield fence to blast a hole at one point and start a fire at another. Repairs were made in time for the ball game. Final scores, Yankees 6, Angels 4, Army 21, fence nothing. And that's the way it is. Wednesday, June 11th, 1975. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
And that's the way it is. That was Walter Cronkite 50 years ago tomorrow, chronicling what happened at Shea Stadium 50 years ago tonight when the Army's 200th birthday was celebrated. Let's hope that something similar doesn't happen here in the parade this weekend, though we are certainly worried about the streets of D.C., but again, we'll have to see how that goes. A couple of other things to finish up with. These auctions of memorabilia are just amazing. The amount of money that things go for. Rafael Nadal's racket from the 2017 French Open. It's probably not one of the most famous wins ever. You know, I mean, it was a big win. He beat Stan Wawrinka in straight sets and extended his winning streak, or his record of 10 French Opens. Didn't drop a set all tournament. He was great and all that. But you know, it's a racket. It sold for $157,000. $157,000 for a racket. The previous record for a Nadal racket was from the 2022 Australian Open when he beat Daniil Medvedev. That sold for $139,000 in 2023. Tennis rackets, who knew? You know, I mean, you see them at garage sales all the time. I still have, and you may still have, those old wooden rackets. Remember the press, you know, where you tighten the wing nuts to make sure the thing doesn't warp? Yeah, I still got a few of those. I should probably get rid of them, but maybe I can get a few bucks for them. Who knows? This was a cool story. 4 friends wanted to see if they could swipe in and out of all 98 metro stations in one day. There have been people, at least 7 that we know of, who visited every single metro stop in a single day. But as far as we know, we don't know anyone who did it at all 98 stations. Metro has expanded some over the years. So this group of friends thought, let's try this. And they were looking for a weekend day because it's extended hours. They go to midnight. And I guess it gets a lot easier coming up in a week or so. June 22nd, the system will open at 6 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays and close at 2 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. So you got another couple of hours to get this done. The cost, not too bad because you can buy a day pass for $13.50. There are bathrooms available. You don't want to leave the Metro system to do that. Lonnie Malush and Will Sheriff built the model and told them the most efficient route. Running a simulation 1 million times, they were given an average completion time of just under 20 hours and a 72% chance of making it. They liked those odds. So they left Shady Grove at 5 a.m. on a Friday morning with a plan to get to Ashburn before midnight. The goal was to hit downtown stations during rush hour to take advantage of the highest possible frequencies. The trains run more often during rush hours. Knocking people over was not in the spirit of the race. At emptier stations, they get fewer frequencies, and they would aim to get on and off the same train to avoid wasting minutes. They actually made it with ease. They made it to Ashburn at 8:30 with 3.5 hours to spare. They had crisscrossed the region in 15 hours and 35 minutes. The surprise favorite, Hyattsville Crossing, formerly known as Prince George's Plaza, an open station crowned by a distinctive parking garage. So, yes, they made it to all 98 stops. And they said at the end of the day, the ding got a little bit traumatic. So they were able to overcome that, which was a good thing. And the last story is about mosquitoes. We're in that period of time. I've had this for a few days. It was in the Post, last week. And it appears that scientists have developed powerful genetic tools that may be able to eradicate mosquitoes. Wow. That'd be great. They're annoying for us. And in Africa, they're terrible. They can cause malaria, dengue, serious illnesses, and the technology is there, and you wonder, well, why don't they use it? Some researchers and ethicists warn it may be too dangerous to tinker with the underpinnings of life itself. Even irritating mosquitoes, they say, may have enough inherent value to keep around. But what they've come up with is a gene mutation that causes female mosquito offspring to hatch without functional ovaries, rendering them infertile. Male mosquito offsprings can carry the gene but remain physically unaffected. So basically, they're sterilizing all the mosquitoes. That's the plan here. Recently, the Hastings Center for Bioethics, a research institute in New York and Arizona, brought together a group of biochemists to discuss this. In a policy paper published in the Journal of Science last month, the group concluded that deliberate full extinction might occasionally be acceptable, but only extremely rarely. It's unclear how important malaria-carrying mosquitoes are to broader ecosystems. Little research has been done to figure out whether frogs or other animals who eat insects would be able to find their meals elsewhere. Scientists are hotly debating whether a broader insect apocalypse is underway in many parts of the world and may imperil other creatures that depend on them for food. So there is that in the food chain. But I would say, I go to Vermont every year and like to hike in the woods. Mosquitoes can be unbelievably annoying, especially after we've had a rain and they've got that, that area where there's stagnant water where they can reproduce. I'm all for sterile mosquitoes. I don't know about you. Would it destroy the world? I don't think so. Would it upset the ecosystem? It might. And I'm all for ecology. But, man, it would seem to be very enticing to me if we can get rid of the mosquitoes. That's just my 2 cents on that. Anyway, Bram is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.